Everything that can go wrong does go wrong. Those that don't quit are most likely to succeed. You don't even have to be the smartest guy.
Yeah.
Just don't quit.
Yeah.
Joe DeSena is fucking crazy.
Joe likes to push people.
He does like to try to break people because that's where you learn who people really are.
Victory happens when 1,000 hours of training need one moment of opportunity.
What do you want people who come and do a Spartan race to walk away with?
If you came home one day and you saw your dog sitting on the couch, watching TV, smoking a cigarette, painting her nails, that would be strange. But that's us. Your dog is an animal, we're animals, and that's the way we live. And it's really fucking strange. Versus coming home and seeing your dog run around in the mud, chase a duck, get dirty, be out of breath, tongue hanging out of its mouth, collapse in your kitchen. Like, that's the way the dog is supposed to live. That dog is happy. For a moment, I'm gonna get you to live like that second dog. And when you get a taste of that, you're hooked. And it's worked. I've had 10 million people get outside. 10 million people. I've yet to meet one person say, that was terrible. Wish I never did that. What you hear instead is, I'm back with my husband, I'm back with my wife, I lost 300 pounds, I gave up drinking, I stopped doing drugs. And I was about to kill myself and I didn't.
This is an interview with Joe DeSena, the founder of Spartan. Spartan, as you guys know, is the most famous global race series around the world with now over 1,000 races a year. In this interview with Joe, we talk about his childhood, how he grew up, what defined him, starting a pool company and gaining over 700 customers that would eventually be acquired in his youth, then how he went to work on Wall Street and had no purpose and no fulfillment in doing that, and so decided to start Spartan. Now, nearly 20 years later, Spartan is one of the most globally recognized fitness and race brands in the entire world, with the hardest race in the world, the death race, that Joe still today organizes every single year. So this is a riveting discussion. I think you'll find it meaningful. We talk a lot about entrepreneurship and what's required to be successful when building a business. Welcome to the Rollercoaster Podcast. Strap in. Joe DeSena, welcome to the Rollercoaster Podcast.
Thanks for having me. My whole life's been a roller coaster. I don't even like roller coasters.
Well, you must because of what you've been through, for sure.
Mostly down.
What's it like, Joe, to be an overnight success?
I wish I knew. I don't know. I'm waiting to learn what it's like to be an overnight success. The world does not give me that opportunity. It seems as though I have to grind for every inch upward and then get knocked down 2 inches. I feel like Sisyphus.
You explained this on a documentary that you did, where at the very beginning you said, the world views Spartan, the business that I built, as an overnight success. But what they don't think about is the fact that this business took 18 years and for 15 of them, you didn't make money, right? What's that like, sticking to a business for that long when you really don't see the fruits of your labor until years 16, 17 and beyond?
You know, I never heard the question asked that way. And I think about the question now, it's 24 years, right? It's 24 years. And the last 3.5 have been, you know, literally the roller coaster came off the tracks. But there is a positive side to it, which is, as you're asking the question just now, I'm thinking, I relish in this idea that I stuck it out for 24 years. I get to say that we've lost money for all these years. It was impossible. My back was against it. Like, it makes the story better. I've got a friend of mine starting a business now, and everything that can go wrong is going wrong, as you and I know. That's just the deal. And I wrote to them this morning, he and his wife, and I said, it makes the story better. Like, who the hell wants to watch a movie or read a book about somebody that has an overnight success, that experiences no obstacles, that just gets right to it and wins? Nobody likes that story. So yes, it sucks, but it's actually kind of nice too to be able to say I'm still standing.
Yeah. One of the conversations we had before we started this was it's almost impossible to describe what it's like being a business builder to somebody who's never done it. It's like nearly there's no words that you can use, right? So one of my favorite analogies is anything that has to do with being punched in the face. Like I love these analogies because that's how it feels, right? Like why not at some point you get punched in the face, you're down, you're literally unconscious. There are moments in business where it's like, dude, I'm dead. Like this is not going to work. Why keep pressing in those moments? It'd be a lot easier to roll over and die.
Just had this conversation with that same gentleman I'm talking about, and I think it's a bit of ego, right? You don't want your friends, your family, everybody you've told you're starting this business to know that you packed it. And I think it's a bit economic. Your back's against the wall, you mortgaged the house, you sold the kids, you did whatever you had to do. So there is no plan B. You've burned the boats in some ways. And look, not everybody does hang on. There's 95% of people that get punched in the face just stay down. So really you're talking to the 5%, those that hang on and somehow muster through to live another day. People don't know this. Spartan was started because of this exact conversation. I was at an Ironman in Lake Placid. I had already been an entrepreneur since I'm preteens. So I've been used to getting punched in the face. I didn't know that was the deal. My dad had said to me growing up, you have to have the stomach for it. I didn't know what that meant. But I was selling fireworks. I'm not even 13 years old. I walk into school. I basically get arrested and thrown out of school. I wasn't looking to do anything illegal. I was just looking to sell fireworks. So that was the beginning of the roller coaster for me. And here I am, fast forward, 20 years later, I'm doing this Ironman. It's pouring rain out. And I see all these elite level athletes way out of my league quitting because it's raining. And I had that experience for 20 years running businesses, getting in trouble, running out of money, employees quitting when they shouldn't, suppliers not delivering when they were supposed to. And I'm thinking, it says Ironman. It doesn't say Ironman unless it's raining. What the fuck is this? And so I said, I want to create a business that emulates entrepreneurship, that emulates life. And that's really the beginning of this Spartan idea.
That's a really cool tie. So would you say that elite Spartan racers are very similar to great entrepreneurs?
Careful with the word elite. There's something that happens. I see it in traditional sports that we know, wrestling, football. I've got anecdotal evidence. It happens certainly at Spartan. Once you become elite, there's a chance you start to become a pedigree. You start to get used to your nails getting clipped, getting massages. And really what I believe makes a great entrepreneur is the person that doesn't have those things, that didn't grow up in the greenhouse, that never gets to take a shower when they want, that doesn't get fed on demand, right? And very quickly we lose those calluses when we're surrounded by a bunch of support staff. I've met the best wrestlers in the world, and I love wrestling, and I'm not taking anything away from elite athletes because it's very hard to do and be great at that, at whatever their respective craft is.
Yeah.
But there is something that happens even in wrestling where once you're surrounded and being told you're great and you're getting to earn those medals and green juices are delivered to you, like you get a little soft. I mean, it's Rocky and Apollo Creed.
Yeah, more modern. It's Dustin Poirier, the first time he fought Conor McGregor.
There you go.
Conor was still at the top, but he said these words. He said, it's going to be a lot harder for Conor to get out of bed in his silk pajamas.
There you go. And that's a great sentence.
It was.
Right.
Like, you still see it. I totally agree with that. I love that. Do you think that when it comes to great founders or even great Spartan racers, that the number one trait that's consistent is grit and resilience?
I just asked another buddy of mine, built a tremendous business, 84-year-old guy worth $8 billion. And is 300 companies, grinds it out, comes from, tough place in London, never complained. I said, what is the number? I had my children next to me because I want them to hear it from this super successful guy. What is the number trait? No doubt about it, resilience, because in his opinion, and I agree with him, everything that, you know it from all your guests and you know it from your business, everything that can go wrong does go wrong. Those that don't quit are most likely to succeed. You don't even have to be the smartest guy or girl.
Just be around long enough.
Just don't quit. Just don't quit.
Yeah. I love this. I totally agree. I think that there's a close second that I'll share with you. I'd love to get your opinion on this. I think the second that's close to this one is the ability for the founder to bring others along. Yeah. What are your thoughts on that?
So I say to my children, there are 3 things. By the way, audience, please expand. You expand. I could have them wrong. This is just in the last 2 years, the saying I came up with because I'm trying to create sound bites for the kids. 3 things to make you, incredibly successful. Number 1, communicate like a movie star. And so to your question, if you can communicate like a movie star and you can excite people and you can bring them along to your vision, your dream, you're more likely to be successful because nobody is successful alone. I gave a speech in a secretive location at Delta Force, and the operators were like, "That's all great stuff, Mr. DeSena, but what about team? No one does anything." And you're right. We don't do anything great alone. Even those guys were the most highly trained individuals in the world. So communicate like a movie star. Number 2, and this will be politically incorrect, work like an immigrant. Don't work like you've got silk pajamas on and it's tough to get out of it. Work like an immigrant, right? Wake up every day, outgrind everybody around you. And then number 3 is have gratitude like a monk. Be grateful in the storm. Be grateful when everything's going wrong that you get to do this and you're alive. People say to me, "Joe, how was your flight?" It landed. Didn't have to land. Right? How's your day? I'm alive. Could be dead. And when you set the bar at like it landed and I'm alive, everything's great. How could you complain about anything?
I love those.
We got to make a t-shirt.
Or 3, right? Let's talk about Spartan Race. Yeah. So, for those who don't know Joe's story, he spent a long time doing something that ultimately didn't provide him any sort of life or fulfillment. And at some point, about 15 years into his career, he said, "I'm ready to live," right? So how did you actually start to live with the inception of Spartan Race?
Well, I like the first part of the question, which was Joe spent a lot of time doing things that were unfulfilling. Let's dive into that a little bit because throughout my life, throughout my preteens until now, just like you, I've bumped into a lot of people that say, "Well, I'm not doing anything because I haven't found what I love." Yeah. And no one taught me this, but my thing was, let me just do. I've got to make money. I've got to get ahead. And it's a journey towards whatever the thing is that I love. But I just got to be doing, because sitting on the couch and waiting, assuming you even can afford a couch, right? Like that, whatever you love is not going to just show up. You've got to be out there. You got to be meeting people. You got to be getting stuff done. You got to show your worth to the world. So yes, for a long time, pre-teens until I was 32, 33, I just grinded. It wasn't about what I love. I just worked every day and I was putting money in the bank, and my goal was to someday have a family that wouldn't fail and be able to pay my bills and do some really cool shit. I mean, that was my goal. But I guess I lived by a mantra I didn't even know I had, which was save the fun for later. Let me just grind. And when I reflect back, by the way, the grind was fun. The grind was fun, even though it wasn't what I loved. It was fun. I was grinding. But then I stumbled upon what I love, which is being outside, being adventurous, doing hard things, and this is really important, motivating 100, 1,000, 1,000,000 people around me to do the same thing and live like the way we're supposed to live, even for a moment, even for an hour or whatever. And that was doing these crazy races. So in the mid 90s, I found this stuff and it hit me like a lightning bolt. I was like, this is unbelievable. Now I couldn't leave my grind. I had to continue to do my grind, but every chance I got, even at the expense of it hurting my business, every chance I got, I did this stuff personally. I challenged myself all around the world. I'd rather spend more time organizing my carabiners and my gear than actually focusing on my business. But I did both. And then one day I woke up and said, gee, I wonder if I could turn this into a business. I wonder if I could support myself and my future family doing what I love. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until I didn't leave the shore, I didn't take off on the boat until I knew I could make it all work.
What do you want people who come and do a Spartan race to walk away with?
Here's what I want them to walk away with. So if you came home one day and you saw your dog sitting on the couch, watching TV, smoking a cigarette, painting her nails, that would be strange, right? Maybe that dog's even dressed up in some kind of in some latest fashion. That would be strange, but that's us. Your dog is an animal, we're animals, and that's the way we live. And it's really fucking strange. Versus coming home and seeing your dog run around in the mud, chase a duck, right? Get dirty, be out of breath, tongue hanging out of its mouth, collapse in your kitchen. Like, that's the way the dog is supposed to live. That dog is happy. That's us. We're the dog. And so the takeaway is, for a moment, I'm going to get you to live like that second dog. And when you get a taste of that, you don't want to go back. I mean, it is so transformative. It's so unbelievable. Now, do I wish you'd run the entire Great Wall of China, 3,100? Of course I do. But I learned very early on, I got to give you a little taste, just a little taste, something that I can sell you on to convince you that getting off that couch, putting down that cigarette, turning the TV off, you can do. We're just going to run around in the backyard a little bit. We'll chase a few ducks. We'll have some fun. We'll crawl around in the mud. And when you get a taste of that, you're hooked. And it's worked. I've had 10 million people get outside. 10 million people. And I've yet to meet one person. And John's sitting next to us. He's been around this whole story, right? I've yet to meet one person say, that was terrible. Wish I never did that. I would have rather stay on the couch. No one would say that. No one. What you hear instead is, I'm back with my husband, I'm back with my wife, I lost 300 pounds, I gave up drinking, I stopped doing drugs, and I was about to kill myself and I didn't. Like, you would think, if you interviewed people at any one of our events, anywhere in the world, doesn't matter, size, shape, country, color, you would think I set you up, that I planted actors and actresses to give you those answers. Everybody says the same thing. It's unbelievable, because we all have issues.
Part of the reason why this business has worked so well, right? People leave and the first thing they want to do is talk about it with their friends.
Yes. I wouldn't say it works so well. Like 10 million people is a lot of people. So yes, it works in that sense. They tell their friends, but I'm one of the only businesses in the world that's selling something that's really hard to sell. Yes, it works. Yes, it's viral. Yes, it's exciting. It feels good, but it's a really hard thing to sell.
Yeah.
I mean, if I was selling couches and popcorn and chocolate and handbags, and it'd be easy.
Much bigger market for that.
Much bigger market, easy. 7-minute abs, easy.
Yeah. At what point in the history of civilization did we lose this desire to want to be more like we were created to be?
I mean, I think once technology, 1700s, 1800s, once we no longer had to do the hard stuff and we got a taste. First of all, our brains, I didn't know this. Podcasts are great for this reason. You get to interview people and learn things. I learned our brain is designed to avoid discomfort. So we have the best intentions in the world. We wake up early in the morning. We want to do the hard work. We're going to get a bunch of stuff done in business. We're gonna get on stage and speak. We're gonna get the workout done. We're gonna do the cold shower. But our brain subconsciously is saying, no, we're not doing any of that. Sit down, grab the cigarette, paint your nails, watch TV. Much safer, burns less calories. No threat to the brain. No threat to. So you're fighting this internal circuit breaker that is telling you don't do the hard stuff. As soon as technology changed in the world and started giving us an easy out, a vehicle instead of a horse, a phone in our hand instead of searching for a quarter and finding a payphone. No need to read a map anymore. Uber Eats, like the brain is having a field day. It doesn't have to do anything. It's exactly what the brain wants. So yeah, I mean, look, there's a great show on Netflix. I shouldn't be watching any TV, but I do get some shows in at night. I love them. And this one show is about the building of the railroad in America and what it was like in the 1800s. And talk about tough living. Talk about braving the wild and like heading out west and getting attacked by Indians and bears and disease and snakes. And like, you didn't have a choice back then. We got lots of choices now.
Is Spartan the hardest race in the world?
Some of the Spartan events are some of the most difficult races in the world. So like we have within our ecosystem, we want to be the Louis Vuitton of hard shit. So Louis Vuitton has a whole bunch of brands. You could buy a certain kind of handbag, you buy a certain kind of shoes, certain kind of champagne from Louis Vuitton, all superficial nonsense. With us, you could choose your hard. And if it's really challenging and it's going to get you, committed and disciplined and scare the shit out of you, then it's something we want to offer. So a couple of our brands are really hard. Like M2O is the toughest paddleboard race in the world. It's a paddleboard race that goes from island to island in open ocean in Hawaii. La Ruta is a brand of ours in Costa Rica. It's the toughest mountain bike race in the world. Lance Armstrong said, hands down, toughest bike race he's ever done. It goes through the jungle in Costa Rica. The death race that I host on my farm is arguably one of the difficult, if not the most difficult event in the world, because you don't know what's coming with the death race. Like if I told you it's going to be the last 3-4 days of June, it might be 7 days. It might be 2 days. It might start on Thursday. It might start on Wednesday. Like I completely screw with you because I want to treat you the way an entrepreneur gets treated by the world.
Yeah.
And you and I know that's tough.
Yeah.
That's tough living. We got World's Toughest Mudder. As we sit here, there's a race going on in Patagonia called the Patagonia Run, 100 miles through Patagonia, which is grueling. So within our ecosystem of this year, we'll have 1,000 events. There's a dozen of them that'll break your soul and want you to go find your mom.
The death race, in your opinion, overall being the hardest one?
I'm partial to it because I created it.
What have you done in past years with this race? Like give the audience like an idea of what this race is, how you like think about it, how you've planned it.
So one year I decided, it always exists on our farm in Vermont. One year I decided to bring it to Mexico. And a bunch of participants came down to Mexico City. That was the message they received. Get to Mexico City, be at the statue by such and such time. Buses pull up. They all get loaded on these nice luxury buses, and the buses head north. And they're driving for 2-3 hours, and the buses purposely break down, but they don't know that it was organized to break down. And they get off the bus, and I'm there, and there's some cattle cars, like dusty, dung-filled cattle cars that happen to be right there where the broken luxury buses are. And I tell everybody, including the spectators that came along with the participants, anybody who's racing, get in the cattle cars. We're going to get you to location. Anybody who's not, stay with the luxury buses. So sure enough, a bunch of spectators and moms and dads and boyfriends, girlfriends, husbands, wives, dressed not for an event, got in the cattle cars. And the cattle cars, went for a few hours on dusty roads, up and down hills. They were in the cages. People were asked to get in the cages that bulls are normally, cattle is carried in. They get brought to the tunnels of a bullfighting ring. If you know what the tunnels look like in a bullfighting ring, the bulls come in and they can't see right or left, up or down, and they're in chutes and they're going to get released into the bullfighting ring. Unbeknownst to all these people who are in these chutes, there is a live bull in the bullfighting ring. There are also red bibs. Each person has a bib number. So your bib number might be 142. You're in the canal. We zip tie your hands behind your back and we send you out to go find your bib. And you are navigating this live bull, chasing people in this bullfighting ring. And the race hasn't even started yet. So that gives you a little taste of what the death race is. It's just complete insanity. But an adventure like no other. Like, when do you get to live like that? We watch it in movies, we read it in books. We never get to live like that. So, but Joe, what if somebody people get hurt? I mean, that's the deal. That's the price you pay to live on the edge.
I'm so intrigued. What sort of physical shape do you have to be in to do one of these?
You've got to be in great shape. So what I tell people that are getting ready for death race, because you don't know what's coming, at a bare minimum on Saturdays, you've got to go out with weight, carrying weight in your hands, carrying weight on your back, 12, 13, 14 hours. You don't have to be running. You don't have to set any records running, but you've got to carry weight 12, 13, 14 hours on a Saturday. In addition to the workouts you do during the week, whatever those are, if you're a CrossFitter or you're a swimmer, whatever, do your workouts all week long, but on Saturday, make sure you're carrying weight, whether you're on your bike, whether you're on your feet, nonstop, time on legs, 12, 13, 14 hours.
Yeah.
When you wake up, this was my litmus test for my own journey in fitness. When you wake up Sunday morning and you could do it again, you're ready. When you wake up Sunday morning and you're exhausted from Saturday, from those 12, you're not ready. You'll know when you're ready, when you wake up Sunday and you can go just repeat it, no problem.
Now, does this race have a finish line?
It does, but you don't know that, because if you were participating right now, I might be telling you we decided we're not doing a finish this year. And the reason I'm doing that is because I know your brain wants you to quit. And so I'm feeding you all kinds of stuff to get you to quit. We decided we're not doing a finish line this year. We're going to extend it until last man standing. That may or may not be true. I don't know. And by the way, I reserve the right to change my mind in an hour.
Yeah, you can do whatever you want.
Anything I want.
When is this race this year?
Last few days of June, and then who knows how long into July.
Is there a chance that I could come and interview?
Oh, yeah. I would love it for you to bring, I'm glad you're asking. Anybody listening to this show, I want them to email you and tell them they're in on doing one of our events, a Spartan, a Tough Mudder, anything we offer, no charge. Okay. And if you could pick one event where you would be, it could be death race, could be whatever, we could set up a tent for you. You could energize a community 500 strong. I don't care. It's all on me.
Okay.
Because I want you to give your community a taste of what we're talking about here. And don't worry if they're not in shape. We're not gonna hurt anybody. They're not gonna end up in a bullfighting ring. But I want them to just see and get inspired and maybe do a little, appetizer. If they want to walk a little bit of the course, they don't have to, just come out.
Okay. And
just get a taste of what it's like to live.
Done. Yes. That's amazing. So we're actually doing something. So I have a brand that I'm building right now called Levels, right? And the whole concept behind Levels is men are suffering right now, worse than they ever have in the history of the world, right? Yeah. The suicide rate among men is higher this year than it's ever been. And I don't think men need to suffer. And I think there are things that we can do in our lives to suffer less, right?
Just do hard stuff.
And a lot of it has to do with
wood,
just doing hard stuff,
That's
right?
It.
So to inspire our community, one of the things that we do is we do these monthly challenges that are incredibly difficult. Today, it's not open to the public. It's very private, okay? But we're filming a mini documentary series around these things. And then eventually, it will be virtual for anybody in the world who wants to join us in these events.
Yep.
They can compete. If they complete it by doing certain things and certain posts on social media, then they get our latest drop, all of our stuff for free, okay?
Yeah.
It's part of the business model. The next one that we're doing is this month on the 25th. And we're calling it, so we're partnered with Go Ruck. You probably know these guys.
Yeah.
We are calling it the Broken Marathon Ruck Edition, which is 12 p.m. noon Thursday to 12 p.m. noon Friday, every hour, top of the hour, 1.1 mile ruck in the middle of the desert here in Arizona for 24 hours straight. And it's like, you know, you think about that to me will be one of the hardest things physically. Any of these men who, by the way, hand-selected savages, hardest thing that any of them have probably ever done. But it's like there's levels to this stuff, right? Sure. It's like you talk about this death race, and it makes our thing to me just feel like, oh, that's a piece of cake compared to what Joe's talking about, right? So I love this idea.
There are levels.
Yeah.
There's always somebody else.
You know the Barkley marathons? Have you followed him before?
I was so pissed off about Barkley Marathon because there's this discussion like we're about to have right now where people would say, that's the toughest marathon.
Which one's hard? Yeah.
I was like, are you guys fucking kidding me? I was like, we created, in Vermont, we created the craziest races there are. So it hurt my ego. Yeah. And so what I did, I don't know what year it was, John might remember. I said, okay, gloves are off. I'm going to put toughest marathon in the world on our farm. I filmed it. We made a documentary. We haven't released it. 26.2 miles under barbed wire. So say whatever you want about Barkley and his license plates. You do 26.2 miles under barbed wire. Tell me how that feels. You go out in the desert, do 1.1 every, 26.2 under barbed wire is a whole other level.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
When was this?
3 years ago, 4 years ago.
You going to release it?
I would love to read it. I don't have a platform to put it out yet. I want to make sure it gets, the widest set of eyeballs. But by the way, that was one component of the event, the 26.2 under barbed wire. The next was a 26.2 carry. They carried heavy weight up and over a mountain. The next was 26.2 miles of rope climbing, continuous rope pull. The athletes were falling asleep on the rope. It's unbelievable. You've seen it, right, John? No, you haven't seen it. It's unbelievable to watch this.
I want to collaborate with you because I think a lot of the way that we think about doing hard things and showing that to the world is the same way that you do.
Yeah, it's fine.
And we very much so, this documentary series is not just about YouTube and social media. It's like Netflix, Amazon Prime, Hulu, the whole deal.
I mean, literally before I walked in this room, a buddy just texted me and said, hey, ESPN may be interested in that. Like, I've yet, since we did it, was 3-4 years ago, to hear anybody say they're interested in it. So, and that just happened before I walked in this room.
Amazing.
So let's talk about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to say a little thank you to our sponsors over at Dream Recovery. I love this company. I love the founder, Todd Anderson, and CEO. He's become a good friend of mine. He's been on the show. And Todd is one of these extreme sleep experts, maybe one of the leading authorities in the world on sleep and why it's so important, the benefits, etc. So he launched a company called Dream Recovery, which now offers a variety of different products to help you sleep better, including mouth tape, nose strips, and their world-class eye mask, which I use now every single day, whether it's napping or at night. And so I'm starting to track the difference between my REM cycles and deep sleep and just my overall sleep-wake cycle by utilizing this mouth tape, and it's been miraculous. And so they've been nice enough to provide a discount code below in the description. Go check them out. An amazing product, and you will not be disappointed. You have a race in
Sparta, Greece.
Well, you have that one too. Yeah. I want to ask you about your favorite race, but I also want to maybe ask a second part to this, which is you have this thing for the audience who's never done this called the trifecta, right? So what's your favorite race / trifecta race in the world that's part of your circuit?
So let's talk about the trifecta. So that, again, my goal was to change lives. Like, certainly, as you said, for the first 15 years, there was no currency. There were no actual dollars that I was making, but I was getting paid in the currency of you changed my life. Yeah. And that's a really lucrative currency for somebody like you or somebody like me. Yeah. That was nice to hear.
Your cup was being filled.
My cup was being filled and overflowing with that. Probably one of the reasons, to your early question, why I kept doing it. Because if you don't get some fulfillment, it is hard to continue on, which is probably why the 95% quit. But I realized early on that one event wasn't enough. They had to do 3. They had to spend an entire year living this way to really kick the habits, the bad habits, and create change. So I said, we're not going to give out a full medal anymore when somebody finishes one of our events. We're just going to give them a third of a medal. And I went in the barn and I got my chop saw and I chopped the medal in 3 pieces. And I went on social media, early days social media, and I said, everybody's getting a and they went crazy. They wanted to kill me. This is ridiculous. You can't give something that looks like a Dorito to us. We need the whole medal. That's the reason we do this. And I was like, fuck, you guys have lost the plot. It's not about the medal. It's not about the medal. But it was so overwhelming. They were coming at me that I said, fine, I'll give you the full medal, but I'm also giving you the third to inspire you to at least live the entire year this way. So it's 3 different events. And they clip them together however they want. So somebody might do an event at Killington, Vermont. They might go out to Morzine, France. They could go, Patagonia, you name the country, and those medals clip together. In addition to that, they asked me, could you put on some events where all 3 are offered and we could knock them out in one weekend? So Hawaii is the big one. They love to go to Hawaii and they love to spend the entire weekend and torture themselves, do all 3 events, clip their medals together and say, hey, we did a trifecta weekend, which when clipped together is a full marathon throughout the course of the weekend as far as distance goes. There's one that happens in Sparta, Greece. Obviously that's special to me because to be in the ancient ruins, to be in the place where this whole thing started is unbelievable. So Sparta's an amazing place. They're all over, they're peppered throughout Austria. Austria is an incredible trifecta weekend, another great. So they're in really idyllic, incredible locations.
It's insane. And you're going to do 1,000 of these this year.
We will do 1,000 events, not all different kinds of events. So some are held in gyms, some are held in stadiums, Fenway Park, for example. So many Tough Mudder events, world's toughest mudder, which is 100 miles they're shooting for. They're going around in circles for 24 hours. So there's lots of events, lots of countries, all different disciplines.
I have a debate question for you that I've asked a lot. I think it's CrossFit that says that they are the fittest athletes on earth, right? This is like their tagline. But if you ask somebody who's an elite Ironman, they're going to say they're the best, right? And if you ask, name the sport, there's probably egos involved there, right? Who do you think, and if you could put Spartan in its own category, Spartan racers, like who do you think are the best athletes in the world?
It depends how we define them, right? Because as you're asking the question, I'm thinking, I know where the question's going. I doubt, we'll have 1.3 million participants this year. I doubt any of them could beat a Rich Froning if we were competing in a CrossFit competition. They're not going to throw tremendous weight up over their head. Like, they're just not going to. They're certainly not going to be the fastest swimmer or the fastest biker in an Ironman. And I don't think I'm being selfish when I say this or self-serving, but I think I'd put our athletes up against anybody when it comes to mindset. I just don't think they're going to quit. They're going to outgrind the cross. We've had a lot of and I love CrossFit. And I love Ironman. I've done 21 Ironman. Like, I love it all. But Ironman's most likely going to quit if the bike chain breaks or the rain is terrible, or because it's so focused on the $8,000 bike and the $800 wetsuit and the $750 entry fee. And, CrossFit is used to being indoors for short periods of time, bursts. Our folks are prepared for the unknown. Is this lunatic going to make us crawl under barbed wire for 26 miles? Right? So I would say the 6 inches between their ears, we probably win.
Yeah.
And they look great. Don't get me wrong. You come to our events, certainly the front of the pack looks incredible.
Yeah.
But, they're not winning an Ironman. They're not winning the CrossFit Games, but they are winning the grind.
Who's the most elite Spartan athlete in history, in your opinion?
Well, we probably go back to Hobie Call. Hobie Call was an air conditioner repairman, young kid, 30-something when I started this whole thing. And as an effort to make some noise and get some press, I offered, anybody that could win all the remaining races of the year, 15, 16 events, we'd pay $100,000 to. And the Wall Street Journal picked it up and did a cover story. And there was no way anybody could win 16.
It was a PR stunt. Yeah.
It was a PR stunt. Nobody could win 16 events in a row. I mean, the stars would have to align for you to win 1 event or 2 events or 3 events or 4 events, but everything would have to be perfect for 16 different events, 16 different locations, including the death rate. It couldn't be done. Fucking kid.
He did it.
He's 15 races in. He's won every event. This is years ago.
You're like calling your friends like, dude, who do you know?
I was calling everybody. I was
come
calling
beat this
wrestlers.
kid.
I was calling CrossFitters. I was calling everybody. Please come down and beat this kid. This is impossible. He broke in the death race. Which was surprising. And it was almost like,
oh, he had to win that one too.
Well, he had to finish. Yes. And it was there's a psychological term for, when you've kidnapped somebody and the person kidnapped starts to like their kidnapper. And in this case, he was kidnapping me in some ways because he was holding me like this $100,000. When he dropped from the deck, I found myself talking him into getting back in, which was crazy. But part of me wanted him to do this.
Yeah.
Since then, there's been a couple of like unbelievable there's a couple out there right now, a husband wife, that have just been incredible. They've become, if he was the Michael Jordan, they're like the LeBron James, and they're winning everything. And what's great about this couple I'm talking about, Ryan Atkins and Lindsay Webster, his wife, they have range. So whether it's a 100-mile run we're putting on or a 3, they win it all. They're pretty incredible creatures. There's been there's been a whole bunch of them that have been incredible, all with that same incredible mindset.
How do you plan these? Like, how many of these events are you involved in the planning process of on an ongoing basis?
Very little. We have an incredible team around the world. Early days, I was very picky. I'd walk around. I'd say, I want flags over here. I want it to look like this. I need this. I need that. We need it. And now the team they're a machine.
So the death race is sort of your main.
Death race is my baby.
That's your main one.
Yeah, death race I'll have very strong opinions about.
Yeah. I want to talk about your relationship. I thought the way that you met your wife was really cool, right? Obviously, you met at a race, and I read the story about you guys' first date that you ever went on was a 8-hour kayak ride, which I could imagine being captive for 8 hours. You can really get to know somebody in that amount of time, right? What do you think has kept? Obviously, you guys were both very adventurous when you met. What do you think has kept your relationship interesting or adventurous ever since 20 plus years ago?
It's a great question, great way to frame it. She's currently very mad at me because I've introduced a new member to our family named Waffles, this little pit bull that I rescued. And my wife is not a huge fan of dogs, especially living in the house we're currently living in, which doesn't have a big piece of land. And because I'm on the road, 150 days a year, and who's going to take care of it? Yeah. But outside of that, the way you asked the question is interesting. Like, what's kept it adventurous? I think those kinds of things do. If I got into my cycle, like, why would you bring a dog home? She doesn't like dogs. Why would you do that? But I think maybe deep down inside, I want to keep things like exciting. I had a swimming pool business when I was young, and I had 700 customers. And I got to go to all these different families' homes, and I got to watch how they operated over 12 years. And many of them got divorced. Some of them, their relationships got stronger. Some people went to jail. Some people, their businesses grew. Some people went out of business. And I got to take the good and discard the bad. And there was one family in particular that was a crazy person. And he had dogs and birds, and it was just more activity and adventure. And I thought, I definitely took something away from that household and thought, that's a cool way to live. Keep it fresh and keep it interesting. So we lived in Singapore for a year. We lived in Tokyo for a year. We lived obviously on the farm. We lived in Vancouver. We've lived in China. We're in Florida now for a minute. We casually adopt kids and move them into our house. Like we have a bunch of, we had 8 dogs at one point. We had a parrot. And it probably comes from looking at those families, and many of them were boring. And so you got to keep it fresh and exciting and bend it, but don't break it. And she wants to kill me right now.
I think one of the syndromes that founders like you and myself and others have is just the inability to ever stop and slow down, right? And I think it's almost like a disease because it's like impossible to overcome for people like us. So how do you reconcile that syndrome that you might have with managing and prioritizing a healthy relationship with your wife?
I'm not good at it. I am definitely not. I mean, I happen to have an unbelievable wife, so she is forgiving. Once hopefully she gets over this dog thing, but for 20 plus years, she has just, looked the other way and dealt with my insanity. I am full blinders on, like many founders, all day, every day, all business. I see it in my son now. My second son has it. He's got this little business. He's 16 years old, and I can't even get him to talk to me. He's, first text when he landed up, they're on the way to a wrestling tournament today, and I was waiting to see, like, how's it going? And it's right into business. He's asking me questions, like, and here I am getting a taste of my own medicine, right? Because I want to talk to him about something else, not. So it is a disease. There's no way to stop it. You just can't stop it. I've learned to integrate it into our life rather than balance it in our life. I always got a kick out of some of those families I described earlier, where let's say the family owned a tow truck business, and I remember the mom making sauce and pasta in the kitchen next to a two-way radio where she's calling in tow trucks, and like it was just part of life. Or another family that owned a hotel, and it was part of their life. And so kind of like those, years ago, right? That family that would own that general store, and they'd live upstairs and they'd come down and they'd run the general store during the day and go to bed at night. Like I've integrated it into my life. Yeah.
You have 4 kids. What does the role of being a father to them mean to you?
Well, I got to make sure that their bills are paid, that they've got blankets and pillows and food. I've got to make sure that they've got what is needed to deal with the realities of life. Most things don't go the way you planned. So let's throw lots of obstacles in front of them. Let's give them tools to be able to level up their lives. And they've done incredibly well, the 4 kids, almost so well that I almost feel guilty when I look at where we live now. Just next door is a terrible town, or it's a very difficult, challenging town called Paramore. And I gotten to know a lot of the kids over there, and they don't have, 1% of the opportunities our kids have. Yeah. So the kids have done well, but it almost feels unfair. You wish you could do it for everybody's kid. And it's just been, it started at a very young age with like, we're going to do a lot of math, because at least in my life, I learned that math does pay dividends if you're good at math. And we're going to learn another language, because I don't speak 2 languages, but I've been told people that speak multiple languages have an advantage. They learn Mandarin. You're going to learn a martial art because it's hard to do.
Discipline and
yeah. And so these were not like, this was not rocket science but it required work. It required a lot of work to stick to it, because there's a lot of birthdays. There's a lot of reasons why not to do it. There's a lot of weekends to not do it. But if you just grind as a dad and you hold everybody accountable and you say the standard doesn't change. This is what we do. This is who we are. It's a roulette wheel. You don't know how the kids are going to turn out, but if they've got those tools and they've got that discipline and they've got that commitment. I got a fun video I can give you. John saw it recently, sitting here. The same son I'm talking about, he wanted an Xbox at a young age. And I don't want to get him an Xbox. I don't want them playing video games. So well, Dad, I'll win this wrestling tournament. If I win the tournament, can I get, yeah, fine. You win this, no chance you're going to win. You win the wrestling tournament. He wins. So I walked over, I grabbed a pizza box, a white pizza box. I put a big X on it, and I said, here's your Xbox, which my wife was not happy about because it was a shitty thing to do. Fast forward a few months, he's like, Dad, what could I do? I want the Xbox. I said, well, you go in the garage. We got the continuous rope. If you could do 25,000 feet on the continuous rope within 8 hours, I'll get, no way. Kid's not going to, it's like 6 years old. He's going to sit there. Sat there 7+ hours. I got 25,000 feet. His hands were bleeding. I got to give you the video. You could play it here. Unbelievable. So we got him the Xbox. But it just goes to show you that work we put in. I mean, there were Christmases where I said, I wrote a note from Santa. He was busy. He couldn't make it to the house. All the presents are on top of the mountain, you know, in a snowstorm.
Got to go get them.
Got to go get them.
I love that.
Right? There were things we did to try to throw obstacles in front of them.
It's awesome. We're all going to die one day. What do you want your children to remember about the way that you raised them?
Dad was fun. He was crazy. He made us work hard. It's fine. We were joking today. John said, maybe we should make a tombstone that said, Joe did all these things right. He changed 100 million lives, but he broke the family with his dog Waffles.
What do you remember about your father?
My father was fun. He was crazy, and he made me work hard.
Precisely the same. It's amazing. In August of 2021, you said that you can't push a river. You have to find where the river flows best and stay there.
Yeah, our farm in Vermont is on a river. Or the river is on our farm in Vermont. And I was there in 2011 when Hurricane Irene hit. And I watched this hurricane just reshape the earth. And I saw houses go by and trees and propane tanks and my covered bridge disappear and the river flood the house. Like, so it really became very real, that sentence of you are not changing the direction of that river. You've got to play within where it wants to go. And yeah, I don't know if I...
You had this other principle that you taught that I really appreciate, which I think applies to all important areas of our life. That is, instead of making a 10-year plan, make a daily plan for 10 years. What does that mean to you?
Yeah, you know, it's easy to write something down and say, this is where I want to go in 10 years, but you're not going to do the work required for all the reasons we said earlier. You're going to be lazy, because most of us are. You're going to quit things. And so you've got to eat an elephant in bite-sized pieces. All right, you've got to put down your plan for today, get those things done, make sure they align with where you want to be in 5 or 10 years, and just do that every day, day after day. The compounding effect of doing little things consistently is unbelievable. And the other thing is, if you're not paying attention and you make slight changes or don't do the work, you find yourself 10 years later in a place you weren't planning on being. The analogy I use is if you and I were in a cockpit of an airplane and we turned one of those dials a millimeter to the right, no big deal, except we end up in the wrong place, right? And so yes, do the work, be consistent, do it every single day, but make sure it aligns with where you want to go, because you could end up someplace else.
Yeah. Thank you to our sponsors over at Bucked Up. I love this company. I love their products, their apparel, and their supplements. Recently, they dropped the mother of all pre-workouts, Mother Bucker. This is not for the faint of heart. This will make you want to claw your face off. So don't get stuck in traffic when you're headed to the gym. I love these guys. I love this company, and I love their products. They are clearly the best tasting pre-workout on the entire market, and they're #1 for a reason. Bucked Up is my favorite workout brand, hands down. And they also have my favorite apparel for working out and just for daily life. It's Lululemon-like quality, but for a fraction of the price that's affordable. So head over to their site, buckedup.com, where you can check it out. And for 20% off their entire site, Use the code TylerHall20. All right, you talked about the India story. So AD, who's producing the podcast today, is from India. You want to share that story?
Yeah, so let's go way back. 1970s, grew up, if you've seen the movie Goodfellas, I grew up ground zero for Goodfellas, a very Italian neighborhood, cannolis, eggplant parm, jail time. Like it was, you know, you've seen the movie. And my mom's mom, my grandmother got sick. She had cancer. It was a very large incidence of cancer in that area because of a garbage dump. We found out later. Anyway, grandma gets cancer. Mom, I'm very young. I'm five years old. Mom goes into a health food store, probably the only health food store on the East Coast at the time in Queens. And an Indian, Yogi, had just come from India. And he landed at JFK Airport and he came into this health food store. My mom met him. And this particular yogi believed in yoga, meditation, being vegan, but also long distance running. And he spends a few hours with my mom, suggests some remedies for changing the lifestyle of her mom, my grandmother, comes home and everything was turned on its head, right? Tells my grandfather and I, get out of the house with those sausages and peppers. We're not eating that way anymore. We're changing everything. And it was very strange. There were monks in our living room not too long after, chanting and orange robes and beads, and mom going to India very often, and kombucha before anybody knew what it was. I mean, this was way before Yoga Journal and Whole Foods and you name it. And so I ended up pushing back for a long time, not wanting any part of it, but through just the continuous
secondhand smoke, right?
Yeah, just being around it with my mom. I eventually embraced it. My best friends in the world are Indian. Funny enough, my youngest daughter is bringing Indian children over every day, and I'm like, wow, it must be genetic. I don't know what's going on, but we tend to really be enamored with folks from India. We did our honeymoon, my wife and I, in India, became friends with the king of Udaipur, who then sent the princess to live with us in New York from India. She showed up with everything in our New York City apartment, including an elephant. I'm kidding, but it was like,
but might as well, yeah.
Yeah, we've been very blessed to have a lot of friends in India, from India, etc. The crazy thing is, I'm flipping through Business Week magazine, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, and I see an article on GT Dave's kombucha. I don't know if you drink kombucha or not, but GT Dave was the original brand. And in the interview, there's a photo of GT Dave. That's the guy, the founder, young kid at that time, 32, 33. He's a friend of mine now. In the background of the photo of him is a guru that I was like, no one knows who that's the one that was at the same picture in my house, Sai Baba. I reach out to GT Dave. I'm like, hey, it's Joe DeSena, Spartan Race. I'd love to meet you. I said, very strange. I see that picture. We get to know each other. We become buddies. His mom was going to India when my mom was going to India. My mom came back and ultimately led to me creating Spartan. His mom came back. They brewed a lot of kombucha in their kitchen. Ultimately, he built GT Dave's, which is worth about $5 billion today. So I think he definitely got the better economic.
You should have done that one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I should have taken kombucha rather than Spartan.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, Indian people have a really special place in my heart too. AD, who's my chief of staff that also produced the podcast, who's sitting in this room, just one of the best humans of all time, right? Like super kind, super meek,
salt of the earth,
super humble. Just
are you a Jain? Hindu.
Yeah, just so grateful, you know, for life, and so
good people.
Yeah,
they invented zero, by the way. There'd be no math without you guys.
Oh yeah, totally. Don't even start. He's an aerospace engineer, so
nice.
It's frustrating sometimes being around him. You know, too smart for his own good. So to close, there's going to be people who, including myself, by the way, I've never done a Spartan race.
You're gonna love it.
And
game changing.
I've contemplated doing a Spartan race 20 times. Like seriously, like on the site, ready to sign up, and then it's like, I don't know.
It's the brain. It's a circuit breaker.
So there's a lot of people out there for sure. I mean, you've touched 10 million people. There's probably another 10 million or more that have been like, I should do this race.
Definitely more. I mean, we get, just to give you an idea, we get 1.2 million people to the website every month. And I'm only getting 1.3 million signups. So there's a lot of people that are close, but they just can't get there.
Yeah. What do you say to these people who are considering coming out and doing a race?
I say, if your life is perfect right now and everything is going really well, don't do it.
So nobody.
If it's not perfect, listening to a podcast or reading a book or going to a conference it's not going to really change anything. I write books and I have podcasts, right? Like, but it's not going to change anything. The only thing that, like, if you want to turn iron into steel, unfortunately for you and I, we got to heat it, pound it, and drown it. That's how transformation occurs. So you need to come out. You need to do the hard thing. You're going to meet a ton of people along the way on that course at that event that are going to inspire you, excite you, become your friends for life. If you bring friends, and by the way, you don't have to even pay me. Like, come do it for nothing. So I'm not selling you. Just come out and do it. You'll meet people. You'll galvanize relationships you already had. You'll make new relationships, and your life will change for the better.
Amen. Joe DeSena, thank you for coming on the Rollercoaster Podcast.
Thanks for having me. This is awesome.
That's a wrap.